like, wait.
We're doing a thing on PWIs.
In the United States, property tax is what ends up affording funding to schools, meaning that because of redlining and housing covenants, if blacks aren't in a certain neighborhood, that neighborhood may or may not have more funding, and that may affect how many African Americans end up attending a higher level university or PWI, predominantly white institution.
Because of this problem, black people and underrepresented minorities are systematically placed below both white people and minorities that come from more affluent communities, and thus perpetuates the cycle of black people and other underrepresented minorities not having enough money to fund their children to go to school. This cycle continues for generations upon generations and is one of the reasons why we have many disparities with race lines today.
How can you tell me that you create race, you inscribe it, re-inscribe it into society over the span of 200, 300 years? And people always say, well, slavery happened so long ago, it ended in late 1800s, forget about it, this and this and that. Well, what came after slavery? You got black codes, you got pig laws, you got Jim Crow segregation. Then we have civil rights, and we end all that. But schools are still segregated after Brown versus Board of Education. There's still discrimination. It's no longer in the law, but there's these gentlemen's agreements. So people can say 2017 we're good. But, I mean, banks and the government denying people loans, that's been documented to the 70s and 80s. So, race influences everything in this country. It wasn't created by black folks. We didn't put it in a position because it was used to oppress us. So how can you use something for 300 years to oppress a people? Something that you created and then tell us, when we want to talk about it, we're talking about it too much and we need to forget about it. But you created this. And it influenced every opportunity that my grandparents had, that my parents had, the schools they attended, the neighborhoods they lived in. And now you're saying, because I can live in whatever neighborhood I want legally, that I should forget about it? I think a lot of times students slip through the cracks. And kind of sadly to say, and it's a little disheartening, I think it's more often happens for minority students where intelligence isn't recognized or validated because it may not look like the standard package of what intelligence is and whatever that means, because what does intelligence look like?
We know at the end of the day that our mentoring can only go as far as our society is also willing to allow our young people to go. So I can teach a kid financial literacy and the basics of kind of mortgage, saving up, trying to buy a house, you know, having good credit. But if black people are somehow in the process of applying for credit cards, if they're given fewer opportunities to gain credit, if they're giving fewer opportunities to get mortgages in certain places, or they're charged higher rates on their mortgages than other people, you know, we're still kind of stuck in the same place. And so to me, it's like that lack of awareness around the systems that constrict us. That's most troubling.
Things, specifically at UNC, things are very tense. So recently there was a cartoon posted outside like the Daily Tar Heel building, kind of depicting, I guess, acts of violence against Trump supporters and like neo-Nazis. And there was a email sent out by our chancellor, you know, giving like full support for like Trump supporters and neo-Nazis, saying like, you know, there are services and resources and CAPS, which is like our counseling program here, like they're available to you. But when Trump was like right after the election, a group of students almost got ran down by a car by a few Trump supporters, and there was just like a generic email like, oh, we support diversity here at UNC, just like a very politically correct, not really addressing like problems. So to see that come out, this happened like Thursday, I think the email came out. So it's just like upsetting to see full support and like addressing of issues on one end based on who they affect. it's very difficult to stay motivated to go on that track and to like stay on the track I'm on, because primarily my classes are filled with white males and white females. Like a lot of my classes, I'm one of like maybe 10 out of 200 black people. There's no real representation. So when I'm grouped with like a group of privileged white males who like think they have like every understanding and think I'm lesser than, like my voice kind of gets put down and like quieted, which bothers me. But I guess I've been experiencing that not my entire academic career, mainly starting at SMATH. Like I've experienced that, and I kind of like learned to deal with it.
We didn't consider when coming to Duke to interview people is how difficult it would be to find black people on this campus, and that's precisely what we're talking about. So one of the most important things that we do need to note is that the black people who tend to already be at PWIs come from African or Caribbean descent. Most are first-generation Americans or directly came from Africa and therefore have been awarded better living positions because they haven't faced the same systematic oppression that other black people who have been in the United States for generations have faced.
And this means that black Americans who go to PWIs are often not seen as legitimate. Often in classes they'll be asked if they're athletes or be treated differently just because of what they look like. The assumption is that they are less qualified than their white counterparts, or that they got here specifically because of affirmative action. But that is not the case, and that's what we're trying to prove here. Who's that?
I think that interviews are irrelevant for this one. Because we don't need them. Everything that we wanted to say with the interviews, we've already said by going to Duke and showing that there are 0 black people. And then between us, we have enough experience being in PWIs and growing up around white people. And then being in 2 different sectors of the word black, me being African and then you being mostly African American. You know, we don't need to have other people say what we've A, already said and B, can already say.
Okay, that's fair. So, what do you want to do? Focus on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually had a conversation about why the number of black students is so low at the school. And I was told that sometimes during recruitment, some schools are not notified about the school or not told about the school. Sometimes counselors choose who gets to come and speak with the recruiters. And so for me, that is the biggest issue, is why are we not getting more African American students? This school can have, I think, 680 students, and of those, the black population is very low. What I do enjoy seeing is seeing the African American students come together and be one. Granted, you all do have different friend groups where you might have Caucasian friends, you might have Indian friends, you might have Asian friends, but to know that you all are joining together and growing together, I think that's important. That's something that if you go to a PWI, you will see there are black student unions.
So one of the things that I've realized has come out of me being in predominantly white school systems and institutions is that I've pretty much only dated white guys my entire life generally. I mean, the person I'm dating right now is white. And so this socialization has led me to be entirely self-aware of it. And at least for the first few months in our relationship, I continuously second guess myself. Should I be in it? Should I be whatever? Because I thought that I was not being fully immersed in the black community because of this. And honestly, it's a really stressful situation to be in, because on one hand you don't want to betray yourself, but on the other hand you feel like you're letting your entire community down, especially with the idea that black men aren't good enough, both in the school system and in the world as a whole. It just kind of feels like you're betraying your true identity instead of one that has been placed upon you through socialization.
I feel that if we try to understand one another. I don't think that most people want to take the time to understand a different culture or a different race sometimes. And it's not everybody, but in order for things to get better, I honestly feel that everybody has to be on the same page. But I don't feel like that's happening.